Shamangelic Healing podcast is designed as a platform to share authentic conversations about real life issues, providing you with valuable resources and tools to support you in shining your most authentic self, creating a thriving life that you absolutely love, and to support you in manifesting your soul's mission. Welcome to this episode of Shamangelic Healing podcast with your hostess, Anahata Ananda. I am so excited about our guest today. He is a dear, beautiful soul brother of mine and a powerhouse in the field of empowerment and awakening and inspiration. Tommy Baker from Resist Average Academy. He's got a phenomenal podcast and amazing books. And he and I have this thing in common that we're just tenacious about going after the truth and doing the inner work. And that is our topic today, about how important it is to go deep and do the inner work and how courageous and necessary it is for your best you to shine. So I'm excited to share this with you. As always, I appreciate your time in tuning in. If you love this podcast, if there's something really valuable in our interview today, please like it, share us, give us your feedback, and let us know how you feel about it. And let's begin. This is going to be amazing. You're going to love him in this podcast. Welcome to the Shamangelic Healing podcast with your host, Anahata Ananda, and my dear guest, Tommy Baker. We are jazzed and excited to dive into this topic about real inner work and how valuable and essential it is to do the work, why, and what are the benefits. And I'm so grateful you're here. You're a rock star, and I'm a huge idol. I love what you're doing. He is bringing forward with your own podcast, which I've had the honor of being a guest on, and you
two amazing episodes.
You are. So check that out. It's Resist Average Academy podcast, and I really appreciate you're on fire with radical honesty and getting at the core truths and fearless facing what you need to face, and resilience. Your messages are really inspired, and you have great guests, and your content's phenomenal, and you are going at it. Look at all of these books, okay? These are not just coffee table decorations. These are all his books. The 1% Rule, which I love. I haven't checked this one out yet. But
That's the first one.
That was the first one. Oh my gosh. What's that one about?
On resolution, it's about dropping the resolution mindset and just no more of that, right? No waiting on a calendar year to create change.
So like start now.
Yeah, start today.
You don't have to wait till the end of the year to start over.
Exactly.
Okay. I love this 1% Rule, like super high. And this is the new one. It's just coming out.
Yeah.
Like this isn't even live yet. And so tell us about that one.
That one's about taking bold steps into the unknown.
Oh, you and I.
Giving yourself permission
oh my gosh.
to rip the Band-Aid off and really listen to your heart.
This is why you're here today. We met a couple of years ago here in Sedona. You came to a retreat.
Yes.
That we did a multiple day retreat here in Sedona. It was phenomenal, the Shamanic Soul Retreat. And I just fell in love with how insatiably hungry you were about doing your own inner work and becoming the best version of you and facing any fears or doubts or insecurities that are in the way of that. And I've just been so impressed watching your career grow, and you're really out there with your podcast, and you're just like on fire with going after it. So I want to acknowledge that about you. That's something we have in common.
Thank you so much. Well, I first heard you on Aubrey's podcast, and I'm
Marcus.
listening, and you were speaking to my soul. And I remember I was driving and pulling over, and I said, the moment that you said Sedona, I said, I'm gonna have her on the show, and then I'm gonna go see her, because you were just speaking to my soul. So thank you for creating that, and then being able to work with you and deep dive, and that has been so amazing. So I'm humbled, I'm honored to be here, and the value that you're creating here is going to change lives.
Yes, that's the intention. Yeah. That is the intention. So let's dive in, because what does that mean to you, the inner work? And how do you know when you're actually doing the inner work and when you're full of shit?
It's
like,
great.
How do you differentiate inner work from bullshit?
Yeah. So to me, the inner work is the journey back home. It's the journey back to center. I like to say it's the journey to remember who we really are. And through that journey, we're going to have all types of experiences. We're going to have dark corners, dark caves. We're going to have jagged paths, stepping into the unknown. There's going to be dark moments, but then there's also another side to that. And that's the hero's journey that Campbell talked about. And that's what the inner game to me is about. And at the end of the day, you know you're doing it when you can look yourself in the mirror and just have that nod that, hey, I'm doing it. And I may not be where I want to be. My external circumstances may not be the way that I want them today, but they're perfect for me now. So it's really just about that authentic trust and radical honesty with ourselves, because we know when we're doing the inner work the real way,
right,
for the right reasons. And we also know when we're just BSing it.
Well, and doing the shortcuts.
Yes.
So I love that you say being able to look in the mirror, and in that place being actually able to be proud of the person we're becoming, even if the results are having a lag time.
Absolutely. So the mirror, how many times a day do we wash our hands and look in the mirror? Or we're at a restaurant, or 10, 20, 30 times. Yeah. And what a travesty to me, and obviously I've been there, where we look up in the mirror and we can't wait to get our eyes on something else.
Right.
And so the inner game is about us being able to hold that space in front of the mirror and say, you're doing it. You are worthy. Yeah. And yeah, there might be a residue in terms of the results coming, but it doesn't matter because those are not who you are anyways. Right.
So it sounds to me like the inner dialogue begins to change when you're doing the inner work. Because I noticed for me when I'm not in that place with my inner work and inner truth, then the inner critic comes. You're not enough. You're not doing it right. You're not as good as somebody else. Nobody likes you. You're not enough. Like all of those other languages and criticism, either whether that's criticism that I'm imagining or repeating what I've heard from somebody else, or my own distorted version of that, versus being able to look in the mirror and being like, you're doing it. Like you keep rocking that. And there's that feeling of being authentic in that place. Absolutely. That feels a lot better than getting fake results or having the empty feeling of, well, I created success, but my soul is starving. I don't like the person I've become. And so those tend to be the hollow victories that, it still puts us, even though there's an external version of success. So many of my clients come and land here just like depressed, and you're like, but you've got it all, dude. Like,
that's the worst part. That's the worst place to be in, because at least if you don't have success, you can latch onto that, and but when you have what everybody else says that you should want, or how amazing you're doing, and you still feel that emptiness, I mean, that's a dark place. Right.
Because now you're not doing the inner work.
Exactly.
Like that to me is like, oh, okay, that I'm just using external motivation to get outside validation. And so I know that when I've been in those places, or when I visit those places even today, I find that, wow, I'm missing the opportunity to do the inner work, to like, where am I bullshitting myself or bullshitting somebody else, trying to be somebody I'm not.
Absolutely.
So that inner work to me is radical accountability and the honesty to face the fears, doubts, insecurities, and the shadow, to do the shadow work, to do the healing that is no longer running from it, hiding from it, blaming somebody else for it, sedating, ignoring, or distracting. Those 6 things tend to be where, as humans, we go to when we're avoiding doing the inner work. It's completely acceptable in society to sedate, run, hide, blame, ignore, and distract. I mean, we all do it in different ways, and until that time comes. So what is that time? What's the catalyst there? Like we were saying, ignorance is bliss, right?
Absolutely.
Like, oh, it's working, kind of. Yeah. So talk to us about that.
We either create something powerful by doing the inner work, or if we avoid it, if we go to ignorance, that's when destruction begins. And destruction could be personal destruction, it could be health destruction, it could be relationship destruction, or it could be on a societal level of destruction. So that's big. So the catalyst, that's the question I'm obsessed with.
I love it.
Study.
This is a good thing to be obsessed with, is to
Well,
understand what's the trigger.
Yeah.
You know, what is where do you travel it all the way back to source point?
Yes.
So yes. What was one of those triggers for you?
Yeah.
What was one of those, like, oh shit, radical truth time? What was one of those where your inner work brought you to a place where you're like, oh, I have to face this now?
Absolutely. Well, there's several, but one of the first ones was just being young and having these burning questions of who am I, why am I here, and finding myself distracting, sedating, running from, and not understanding that, but always feeling called to answer those questions, because we all have those questions. It's, do we have the courage to seek the answers to those questions? So I would have these questions, and it led me to, my intuition said, hey, there's this event. At this point, I knew nothing about the work or the practices, nothing about spirituality, but I was living in New York at the time, and there was this Buddhist retreat meditation. I said, I'm going to go. So I go, have no idea what I'm getting myself into. The youngest person by 30, 40 years.
Easily, yeah.
We're all going around introducing, why are you here? And I just started to hear these stories and this energy about what brought people here. And a lot of it was rooted in crisis, right? Divorces and maybe death or health issues. And so I'm going around, and then I say my part. I hadn't experienced those things yet, but I'm still having this existential questioning. And a man turns around and he looks at me and he holds space, and he looks me right in the eye, like one of those moments, and he says, the things that I would give to be here at your age. Life-shifting moment. Like, he didn't, obviously we'll never know, but that moment stayed with me and anchored, and it told me, I don't know what this is exactly. I don't know what this path entails, this inner work path that we're talking about. But I felt the regret right there, and that's a sign that I have to deep dive into it.
Right.
And that moment started the process for me to actually start unpeeling the layers, right, to answer those questions.
And I witness within you a fire that is unique, to really go after it. Versus passively experience it.
Yeah.
And
I want to go to the nectar.
I know, right? and the yogis would call that the amrita, the divine nectar. Well, that's the truth. That's the consciousness. Yeah. And peeling apart, the inner work is peeling apart everything that's false, everything that isn't me, everything that is contrived, everything that is deeply keeping me from my joy, my birthright of happiness and being myself. And whatever the catalyst, because like you said, sometimes in my healing practice here in Sedona, I get people that are landing with those crises.
Yes.
That there's been a divorce, there has been, or like a deep heart wound, there's been some physical or emotional abuse in their past, or depression to the point where I'm doing it all right.
Yes.
I've got the job, I've got the kids, I've got the spouse or whatever, or they're like I'm doing it right, but it doesn't fit me. I'm not living my life. I'm deeply unhappy.
Yes.
And so it can look like on the outside that everything's great, and inside, like I said, that hollow victory. Sometimes it's the diagnosis.
Yes.
And whatever the catalyst, for you it was this soul calling, like I just have to go there. And for those listening, for those watching, that your soul has been speaking to you.
Yes.
The divine creator source, whatever that is for you, has been knocking on the door. Sometimes it comes in the form of a pain or a heartache or a yearning or depression or anxiety. Well, those are all clues from the universe. You're not on the right path, or something wants to change. Yes. And so I think doing the inner work is starting to listen to the voice of, wow, I really want to do this. And also the inner work is also, I've got to stop doing this because it's leaking my energy. It's keeping me small. It's not authentic.
Yes. And the whispers. So it's going to start out many times with whispers. And right. So, I gave you that example, but fast forward to another one. I'm living in New York City and Manhattan. Not the place for me.
Oh, for sure. Me too.
So I'm there and I'm going down this path.
Me too.
And there's no relationship that I ever felt connected with there. I really hated the environment, but just saying that at the time was like impossible. I would rationalize,
Right. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing.
Everything about it was wrong, and the whispers would come in. and it would say, "You got to get out of here. Like the expiration is
long past
due."
due.
Yeah. But that was a crisis moment. I felt alone. I felt disconnected. I felt I needed space, but I didn't have any. I was running a business that I looked 5 years online, and I saw what I could turn into, and that's not my movie. That's not my path. So, and the whispers came, and they came, and they came, and they came, and I found myself at a dinner table on New Year's Eve night in New York, and I was in the room, but not really in the room.
Right. Disassociation.
Don't even know if I excused myself. I just walked because I needed space, literally and figuratively. And I found this patch of this open park, and just lost it.
Yeah.
Lost it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was
Can't hold it together
that was
any
the moment I
longer.
realized the past 3 years I've really been ignoring this. And so that specific night, I painted a new vision. I said, in 1 year, this is exactly what's going to be happening. And mind you, like, there was no blueprint for that. I had just signed a lease. We were on the hook for $400,000, 5-year lease. I had 11 employees. Everything that could anchor me there had anchored me. But in that moment, I had clarity around where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where the next day, things radically changed.
Right.
Just wasn't a one-time thing. Because I'm obsessed with finding out, why do we change in those circumstances, and why do other people get stuck in the same patterns?
Because the whispers,
Yeah.
right? Because everybody has these whispers.
Yes.
And they come in lots of different forms.
Yes.
And we're all, in this place where like, la, 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 I didn't hear that, or I don't want to hear that. Or it's societally acceptable to, well, if you hate your job, everybody hates your job. Like, oh yeah, well, your relationship. Yeah, yeah, well, everybody hates a relationship.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just like, and that kind of societal camaraderie around communally sedating a life that sucks.
Yes.
And getting validation for that, and camaraderie.
Yes.
And so that takes a tremendous amount of courage to do the inner work there that says, if I start changing this dynamic, how much of my current life has to change
Yes.
in order for me to actually go on this trajectory that is in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
That's going to impact employees, that's going to impact my relatives, that's going to impact, how I see myself, how others see me. So how did you deal with the impact of starting to make those changes?
Absolutely. And it goes back to listening to the voices within, because when you know it's what you have to do, the
It's
external
non-negotiable.
circumstance, it doesn't matter, because if you stay on that path, all of those people are going to be impacted negatively, because you're not showing up as who you really are. You're not honoring your truth. So
You're going to sabotage it one way or the other.
Exactly. And so that self-trust, that has to be there. That ability to listen authentically, even if it doesn't, especially if it doesn't make sense.
That's
and let's be
part of
honest,
the
it
inner
shouldn't
work,
make sense.
right? That's one of the pieces
Yes.
of doing the inner work, is listening to those whispers.
Yes.
And sometimes we're not ready to listen until it's a big raging shout,
Exactly.
tantrum, and where the whisper isn't heard, now it's louder, and now it's a full life meltdown. Like,
Yes.
are you going to listen now? Are you going to listen now? Are you going to listen now?
Yes.
What the stakes? Because we both know that the stakes just get higher when
Yes.
I'm not listening to the whispers.
Absolutely.
And we're both smiling because we're like, it sucks
Yeah.
when you get woken up by a huge tsunami,
Yeah.
hurricane style tantrum that is really just your inner self yearning for that, what you really want, and being trapped by the fears of change until you're ready. And it's like, oh, but ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
Tell me about this.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, so I did write about that in
Yeah.
one of my books, and the
Love
headline
it.
is "Ignorance is bliss until it's painful." So it's bliss, meaning it works, and we can
The illusion.
talk ourselves into the illusion
Yeah.
until we wake up and the tsunami is hit, and we got nowhere to go.
Right.
We got nowhere to hide,
Right.
and none of the tools of sedation, distraction, those don't work anymore.
Right, those don't work anymore.
At all.
Like, I
And you're
can't do this again. I can't
Yes.
get drunk and try to, sedate this thing away. I can't bully this relationship. I can't bullshit, waking up to another day of a life I absolutely loathe.
Yes.
Like, I can't do it any
Yes.
longer. This is the breaking point, which is truly liberating.
It is.
The human condition is so silly that we have to come to that place sometimes.
Absolutely.
And I want to acknowledge with compassion and tenderness how scary that is.
Yes.
The dive into the dark night of the soul and that rock bottom,
Yes.
whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
whether that's a health crisis, whether that's addiction, whether that's relationship woes, financial meltdown, empire, dissolution,
Yes.
whatever. Whatever your version of failure and wake up call looks like, because
Yes.
we're all going to get them because we really want to wake up.
Yes.
And so I want to acknowledge whatever version of that is happening for those listening and watching, and to let you know from the both of us, there is great stuff on the other side.
Absolutely.
This is happening for you.
Yes.
This dark night, this challenge, this wake up call is all of the whispers that your soul has set up for you to wake up at just the right time and the right circumstances.
And why is that breakdown so painful, do you think?
Because we're stubborn shits. It's because I think it's so painful because we've ignored all the other whispers.
Yeah.
And the fear of change in the human condition is so great.
Yeah.
And the fear of loss of, well, what am I going to lose if I sober up? What am I going to lose if I follow who I am, or if I'm really being authentic, if I
Yes.
speak the truth in this relationship? I think that there's such entrapment to the fears of criticism and the impact it may have on others and how people will view me, and the fear of failure is so deeply rooted that it keeps us in that place until we just
Absolutely.
can't do it any longer.
Yeah. And I noticed the breakdown hurts that much exactly because of what you said, and in general, because we realize that we don't know who we are.
Yeah.
And so we have that external crisis which rocks our identity boat.
Right.
And then we're faced with ourselves, and we've also realized, wow, I don't know who I am, and how many years I've been operating this way. So the pain is so intense, but it's also a great focuser. It's a great way to get serious, to get honest.
Yeah.
And just like you said, deep within that tunnel, there's another side. And that other side, deep within, there's a gift waiting for us.
Right.
And the question is, can we be courageous enough to take each step into the tunnel,
Right.
even when it hurts, even when we can't handle our
Right.
feelings, even when the whole world seems to be crumbling down,
Right.
to receive the gift?
Because there is a gift.
Always.
And unless you know that, who would want to go through that?
Absolutely.
I don't want to look at my shit. I don't want to face my fears. I don't want to dig up that wound from the past. And understanding that it's uncomfortable and it's so liberating on the other side.
Absolutely. And we're talking like at a macro level, but it's the same thing on a micro level.
Yeah.
When I come to your breath work, those first 10 minutes, I have resistance. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. My mind is saying, so one of the times that we did it, my mind was screaming at me saying, can't you just be like everybody else and not take this journey again?
Yeah.
And that's the threshold moment.
Right.
And then on the other side of the threshold moment is exactly a beautiful gift.
Right.
But we're going to experience at a micro, macro, and in between. And so the inner game is about those small moments as well.
Well, because when you're making that shift, or when I'm making that shift, or those listening, watching are making that shift, that positively impacts everyone that you touch, everyone you're in relationship with, that you're having an influence of your authentic self being present instead of a fake, smaller, distorted version of you, avoiding, sedated, insecure version of you having an impact on others.
Yes.
That robs people of the opportunity to really experience your fullness and your beauty and your grace and your authenticity. And that's where we find sameness.
Yes.
Is like, oh, you're insecure too? Whoa, me too. I was just
Join the
afraid.
club.
I was just afraid to show it.
Yeah.
I thought you had your shit together. And what you were referring to, for those that don't know, one of the tools that I use is Shamangelic breathwork,
Yes.
because it's one of those tools that I really dig as a journey and a gateway into
Yes.
doing the inner work.
Amazing.
Because that deep cathartic breathing directed down into the dark places. And that's the kind of the shamanic journey.
Sure.
Is actually to face what guilt, what shame, what rage,
Yes.
what grief is hiding in there that I have just shoved over into the basement or under the carpet and ignoring, that is actually subconsciously affecting the way I see myself,
Yes.
how I act in relationship, what I'm seeking validation externally for, that without even realizing it, that what's in the corner that I don't want to look at is affecting my choices
Yes.
at a deep unconscious level. And that's part of the inner work, is to kind of go in and face those fears and look at what's there and be tender with it.
Yes.
That's where breath work does that, and also then liberates. Okay, well, let me get the rage out.
Yes.
Let me get this grief out that never had a chance to process, and then I get to see who I am outside of all of that protecting, wounding,
Yes.
distortion, pain, walls. I get to discover who's there.
Yep.
And meet that person, and they're fabulous.
I know, that's what I was going to say.
They're so fabulous.
It goes back to that Marianne Williamson quote of what we're afraid of is that magnificence. And so
Right.
when you do the inner work that we're talking about, there's a lot of different fears for different reasons, but at the core, once we can break through that, we see that there's greatness inside.
Yeah.
And there's and there's a light that is so bright inside.
Yeah.
That you just can't imagine.
Yeah.
And letting that out that's the liberating moment. That's the wow.
Right? And in addition to the liberation, I think when we're in that place where we see ourselves and celebrate ourselves, then we're actually able to make choices from an authentic place.
Yes.
That actually attracts the ability to create and manifest a life and an expression of self that we're actually really proud of. And so what I found as a benefit from that experience of being radically honest and doing the inner work is that I get to experience more sustainable joy
Yes.
and happiness. It's not so fleeting. It's not like, wow, I threw a dart in the dark and
Exactly.
it landed on,
Yeah.
the center, like by chance. And the rest of the time it's just shitty.
Absolutely.
And the difference is when you're doing the inner work, I think that the choices, more conscious choices, more awareness, more truth choices, then we experience more sustainable joy
Yes.
and authentic expression, and we're free from other people's criticism and judgments in ways in which we were trapped by it before.
Absolutely. So your highs endure longer.
Yes.
And your lows are shorter and easier to navigate.
They're not as deep.
Exactly.
They're not
Exactly.
as-
So your highs coming up and you're raising the barrier below.
Yes.
So now you're living in this much more beautiful place where it's like you had a bad day. That used to be your best day
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Right? That you could get to that place. But most importantly, like you said, we can navigate all of the challenges that are going to come no matter what type of work we're doing. They're going to come. So what an amazing benefit to be able to navigate those challenges, be able to create the separation from them. So I was telling you earlier that I got a scathing message the other day, a personal message that was to
You
date.
mean message, scathing message? What?
Yeah, someone posted a 700-word review, and they posted a blog, and it was all.
It was less than excellent, I gather. It wasn't 5 stars? Is that what you're saying?
It was 2 actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Amazon got rid of it because it was so close to hate speech.
Right.
But basically, the thesis was the world is worse off with people like you.
Oh.
And people who like the stuff that you
Oh.
put out into the world.
Oh, how?
So that was like the core. Now, in the moment I'm reading this, I'm in the podcast studio, and so I start reading, and it's this very long material, and of course I go into fight or flight.
Right.
Right? Like my audio engineer is right there. He's talking. I don't have anything to do with what you're saying. I'm focused on this thing. Fight or flight. I can feel my heart be going up.
Adrenaline.
Sweat glands,
fluid,
everything. I'm ready to go, right?
Just ready to fight, go blow.
And then I got to the end of it, and it melted away.
Wow.
And that to me was the biggest sign of the growth. Like this is
Yes.
the real
Yes.
world tangible benefit of this work.
Yeah.
Because like I told you, 2, 4, however many years prior, there's no way. I had a podcast 5 minutes after, so I was going to do something like this where I had to show up in
You
my
have to
power.
snap out of it.
Yeah, and the message came, and it was gone, and 2 years ago, that would have kept me up at night.
Right.
I would have been thinking,
how do I respond? I gotta like make him see, him or her see that I'm really doing great things, and here comes all of that need for external validation.
Exactly.
And force trying to get somebody to validate you.
So this is where you notice that in the nuances, you notice the inner work.
Right.
Meaning you have a conflict with your spouse or your partner, and you lean into the conversation instead of avoiding it.
Right.
So it's a very small thing, or you're having an issue at
not.
work or
It's
with your
real
boss.
big.
Yeah, and you've been having something with your boss, and you've been putting off the conversation. This is when you do it. Or a coworker makes a comment about something, and this is the daily exercise and practice of the inner work that the benefits carry over to every area of life. Because let's say I let that consume me. Well,
Which is
how am I
easy
going
to do.
Yeah. How am I going to
Come
show up on
on.
the podcast that day?
Right.
How am I going to show up for my clients? How am I going to show up for my fiance? How am I going to show up for myself?
And I think even more so, how are you going to show up for that person that wrote the post? Because
Yes.
now,
Ooh, I like that.
like that's where the real work comes to see, am I walking the talk?
Yeah.
Because I think the real inner work is, if I respond from my contracted, smaller,
Yes.
triggered,
Yes.
angry, resentful version of myself, it's not going to be good.
No way.
And I'm gonna then now we're engaging
Yeah.
in battle,
Yeah.
which is an older, lower frequency of
Yes.
something that you're evolving. Because
Yeah.
we were, and it's a very primal place that we want to evolve
Absolutely.
from. That we want to get out of that fight or flight response when we feel attacked or when we feel threatened or criticized or
Yes.
judged. Because you know what? There's some fabulous things in this book that not everybody will agree with.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, there's some incredible pearls for the people that are willing and open to receive the tools that they really want and need to get themselves to the next level.
Absolutely.
And what a pity to play small and to also put out a voice of hate or combat that is going to come back to hurt you, and it's really not the best version of you that you want to put out to that person, because
Exactly.
the real inner work is seeing them with compassion,
100%.
which is so hard,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's to me where the hardest part is, where I've got to look at the villain in the fight or flight. There is an attacker.
Yeah.
There is a threat, and to me, the juiciest, hardest, deepest inner work is to actually like soften into facing that person vulnerably and compassionately, because I really want to punch them and take them out. And you might want to do a few other things as well.
Sure.
Make them wrong, make them hurt,
Yeah.
and argue about it, or make them, see you.
Yeah.
And when you're really doing the inner work, we get to see them.
Yes.
So in that process, how you melted it, what did you see in that that helped you pivot that? Because that to me is the juice.
Well, I think it's what you detailed, right? To feel the lowest frequencies of the primalness
So easy.
of wanting to wanting to combat, feeling threatened, the ego, the personal attack, the ego is just
Hurts,
like,
yeah.
that I'm a horrible leader, I'm leading
Yeah.
weak men.
Yeah.
All of these things that are so contrary to what I believe.
Oh, and they're so untrue, because
Yeah.
I've seen your
Thank you so
work,
much.
and I've seen the men that you worked with, because you brought them up here, and I've seen the tenderness and how really tough men, really guarded men, are opening and deepening and changing and becoming better fathers, better leaders, better brothers, more compassionate spouses. And I know personally the work that you're doing is really helping men, liberating them from their own traps and their own wounds. And so at a deep level that's not true. I know that it's a deep level and that's not really true. That continue with that, how you turn that around, because we both know that's not totally true.
Yeah, and that means the world acknowledgement. But yeah, going from the lowest level frequencies and then going and I even went through a process where I looked at it again and I said, is any part of this true?
Because
Is there anything
there's
here?
some valid
is there,
feedback.
Is there anything
Okay,
here
fair.
that might be true? Right? But going all the way from the primal emotions, and I didn't know it at the time until you just said it, because where I ended up was from a place of compassion.
There's no way you can melt it otherwise.
Exactly.
You'd be like,
And gratitude.
otherwise.
And gratitude. And knowing that, that person is likely in a place. I could have been, the book was what triggered them, but it could have been a grocery store clerk. It could have been somebody in a car in traffic. It could have been the president. Something else was going to trigger them. I just happened to be
right there
at the right place at the right time.
Well, and I think, sometimes it's so easy, in the people that I'm following that are really boldly leading in the world, every single one of them has said, there's going to be those that are going to throw stones. There's going to be those that are going to, if the Dalai Lama gets hate mail, you're in good company.
There we go.
If you're like someone as sweet and authentic as that, and it also liberates us from the need to validate and be validated by our listeners or fans or whatever, so that we're validating ourselves. And that's the inner work, is to be validated regardless of whether people like it or don't like it. You and I both know things that are going to be said on this podcast. Some people are going to like it, they're going to love it, they're going to be like, wow, that was amazing. And some people are like,
we're going to comment
I don't think there's nothing new, it's just totally stupid, they're full of shit, and they're totally fake, and like, that's cool. Like, I'm cool with that, and
we welcome that.
I don't know if I welcome it, Tommy. And that's my inner work.
Yeah.
Is because I've had to face with this podcast knowing that some of the content here is going to rub people the wrong way.
Yeah.
And knowing that the mission, the desire to bring out maybe some inspiring stories, or to let people know that they're not alone. Yeah. Or to let them know that it's okay to have the courage to face those things, and they don't have to stay hidden, small, sedating, that there is a process that can help. Yes. And that there has been other people that have gone through the process and experiencing the other side and saying, yeah, come on, let's go. There's great things on the other side of that. And I stick to that truth, knowing that in the process, there's going to be people that don't like it or are threatened. And every single leader that I've followed that has said, those are the people that are just afraid to shine themselves. Those are the people that some truth is what you're saying is hitting a core trigger in them, and they're still not ready to see that. So they're in that place of blame.
Absolutely.
And hiding. And it's a lot easier to criticize somebody else from the couch instead of doing the inner work and saying, well, then let me bring my voice forward. If I think this guy or this woman is full of shit, well, then let me bring out the truth. Well, great.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, like, okay, awesome.
Get in the arena.
Get in the game.
Let's see that. That's what I want to see. And I know we're talking about podcasts and books, and it's like, this is going to happen
in any
regardless.
Arena, right?
If you're the person who is been going to happy hour with your coworkers for 3 years, and one day you have that spark of intuition that says, this ain't for me anymore. Right. And you say, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do a meditation or do something that's going to actually fulfill
nourish
me.
The soul, yeah.
You're going to get persecuted in such. And it might be a passive aggressive comment in passing. That's the same exact thing, right? So this is going to happen regardless. The moment that you and I choose to commit to our own growth and our own path and our own voice, whatever that looks and feels like, that's the moment where we're gonna have tests. Yeah. Where people are gonna, it could be people on social media, it could be family, it could be acquaintances, anything in between. And if you're committed to yourself on a deep level, then you look at that test and you say, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and do it again.
And do it again. And again and again.
Yes.
Because it's the journey. Because sometimes it might be, I need to let go of the substance that is keeping me small, or the circle of people that really don't want me to grow. Or like you said, just being in, like, there's certain circles where I realize that if I just stay here, this circle supports sedating and gossiping and disempowerment. And I'm like, uh-oh, I actually need to change my circle of influence. And in that, I've had to mourn some relationships that I realized all we have in common is alcohol.
Absolutely.
All we have in common is our old stories or victimhood or
complaining,
like, playing small or whatever. And I say, you know what? If I don't, do I have anything in common with this circle of people? And I've had to kind of grieve some of those where I was like, wow, I thought our relationship was deeper.
Yes.
And realizing, no, it was just alcohol's what kept us together.
Yes.
Or staying small, or this job of all of us bitching about our boss just kept us, that's what we had in common.
Yeah.
And I think it takes radical courage to actually step out of that and face that your circle of people might actually be being part of what's keeping you small, and your bestie in that place might be the first one to throw the dagger.
So true. And that's why I always ask, are these real friends or are these enablers?
Ooh,
Are they
okay,
real?
say it again, T.
Are they real friends or enablers?
Okay, wait, I just want people to sit with that. The people you spend the most time with right now, are they real friends or are they enablers?
Yeah. And enablers are purely conditional. The moment that we cross the threshold of what they perceive as comfortable for the agreements of our relationship. So if you're in a group that's complaining about the boss, and the moment that you step outside of that, that's
a threaten. You're threatening the container that holds us together.
Absolutely.
So you got to be ready.
You better be ready, because that's not a matter of if.
It will
happen.
It will.
So
whether it's behind your back or to your face,
and you can feel it. Too.
Yeah, right.
So there's that. So they're friends until ... until you.
Okay, so how do you? I mean, what's your advice for navigating that? And because we both have felt that.
Yes.
We both have felt that. So, and every time you step up or I step up, I notice I have to do it again.
Yes.
Not just the circle of influence. I've got to raise that circle of influence, but I've also got to raise my lifestyle choices. I'm gonna, like, this substance or this lifestyle habit doesn't fit who I'm becoming. It's not just the circle of influence, everything. Every time I'm coming into a new set of wings, I'm questioning, does this choice fit who I'm becoming? Not who I am.
Yes.
But is this sustainable? If I keep staying up till midnight, if I keep having if I keep sedating with Netflix, if I keep these food patterns or this circle of influence, is that going to get to me to where I want to go?
Yeah.
And every single time it's like, nope, it's falling short. And again, I'm facing that, changing it and being comfortable with changing it again and again. And I'm getting better at it, but I realize that there's still a mourning process that says, okay, I'm letting go of this substance. It has been alcohol, maybe it's sugar, maybe it's coffee, maybe it's like Netflix, whatever it is, or too much social media, or a friendship that's been there for 20 years and saying, you know what, this is not really serving who I'm becoming.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we have physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bandwidth, right?
Right.
And the moment that and no matter what, even if it's a small thing, we're giving it energy. We're giving it the energy that we could give our mission. We're giving it the energy that we could give a person that we don't even know exists, but because we're still holding on to this relationship, they haven't been able to walk through the door. So there's that opportunity cost. Because when we say yes to something, we're automatically saying no to something else. So if you're saying yes to a relationship that you know deep down is not serving you, then you're automatically saying no to a relationship that could serve you and blow your mind, right? So in terms of navigating that, I always extend an invitation. So we have to me, I coach people to declare where they're going and extend an invitation to that person if they want to come along the ride. Yeah. And if they don't, then it's
cool.
We have relationships for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. So that's okay. Yeah. Right? You both served your purpose, but now you're going to create the space for something much more powerful.
And that gives, then I think that also means that it gives me permission, in fact, necessity, to reach outside my current lifestyle or container or choices for new foods, new lifestyles, new circles, and it takes effort there. Instead of just, okay, I'm going to let go of that, I've got to put something better in its place. And I think a lot of people feel empty in that place. It says, you mean I have to let go of my drinking buddies, or I have to let go of that substance, or I have to let go of that work? Well, I don't want to do that because I haven't put anything in its place. And I think people just feel like, okay, well, if I let go of that, then there's this huge void created. And unless you're making the effort to move in the direction of a better relationship, putting yourself out there, or reaching for new connections, new community, and learning new substances and exploring new lifestyles that fit you and nourish you at another level, that we've got to be able to do our inner work that faces, wait, I'm starting all over again. And it's okay, because I get to explore now and invite in, back to the invitation, what might be of resonance. And in that exploration, I might find things that, that's not it, and
Yes.
that's not it, and not to be discouraged by that. But to keep exploring that says, wow, there's my people.
Yes.
There's some of my people right there. And ooh, I like this activity. This is cool. I like this too. And we've got to give ourselves permission to be courageous, to explore some new things so that we can land on something that's nourishing our soul and not just be like, oh, these are my decisions, and if I don't make those, I have nothing.
Exactly. Because then you're going to revert back to what you've known.
Exactly.
And a real practical test is just, it's a test where I coach people on, I share it on my podcast. You pull out your phone, you look at your last 10 communications. How many of those are expanding you, growing you? And if it's anything less than 8, then you've got some work to do.
Okay, cool.
Right? And so that's a
That's
very
a good one.
practical,
That's a good one.
like, who are you sharing your energy with on a daily basis? And I noticed I even did this a couple months ago, and I had this old thread of college roommates that we have no connection with, but still there's energy going in that place, right? So I have to make the conscious decision and move on from that.
Right. And some will evolve with you, or come around. I found a couple high school friends and even college friends where I'm like, okay, we kind of grew apart, and now I'm finding like, wow, they're awakening and I'm awakening, and we've come back around. And so I always leave the door open.
Yes.
If there is a vibrational alignment, and it's not, okay, you're out of my life. It's more just there's less energy devoted to that relationship and nourishing it, because now I'm looking at what masterminds, where my soul family, what does my soul family look like now, and I allow those qualities and to change.
Yes. So I've had people make fun of me, passive aggressive comments, and to take that whole circle around to actually consume my content, become clients of programs.
Yeah.
So you just never know, and that's the power when you own your life and you're living deliberately and with purpose and intention, and speaking your truth.
Yeah.
You never know who's watching, observing from the sidelines, listening, that you're impacting, and early on they might seem like you're not, but you'll see as time goes by, they'll come around and they'll say, I've been following you the last 2 years. You've inspired, and those sometimes are the most impactful messages, because you didn't even know. You thought they weren't connecting with that, and you were actually creating an impact.
That's why it's, I think, so valuable to keep the heart open.
Yes.
As you make changes or evolutions, and maybe let go of some intimate or professional or friendship relationships, as you evolve those, to keep the heart open for compassion for the process, because they're losing a friend.
Yes.
Or they're losing what they thought that, they're grieving, and sometimes they're going to throw a tantrum or throw a dagger and or whatever, and give the opportunity to come into compassion.
Yes.
This is, let me just meet you where you are, and I love you, brother. I love you, sister, and I'm going to keep going forward, and keep the door open for resonance always. And I love that. So what are some tips that you have as people navigate doing their inner work? What are some of the resources or tools that you have used to really help you navigate that?
Yeah, I always start out with what you're naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
So like for me, being outside of nature,
Sure.
that's one of my most precious tools.
Yeah.
Because when I go there, it's my direct access point to the truth, to connection, to presence. Right? So often in the stuff that we do, people will prescribe 11 new habits for someone. You're going to do a journaling routine and then meditation, and then you're going to do this, and they get overwhelmed.
Yeah. And do nothing.
Yeah. So I'm always interested in what's the easiest access point. What are you already drawn to, but you've forgotten? Maybe it's been 3 years since you've actually spent time outside. So, there's obviously what you're drawn to, and then there's just so many, I don't like putting the inner work that we're talking about into a box of just, hey, these are some spiritual routines and practices, and that's it.
Because it's personal.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be anything. There might be a creative endeavor. It might be one of those routines like journaling and meditation, or the amazing work that you do. But if you're not currently doing it, or you're not spending the time that you want on it, the time and energy, go for that first one. Go for the one that you're just drawn to naturally and that you've forgotten about, because that access point is going to open up the other ones.
Yeah.
And so, I've tried so many things, and I've been a part of so many experiences. Very few things for me will connect me like nature.
Like nature.
And
Well, because it sounds to me, what we talked about from way back 7 hours ago, because we covered a lot already, is that whisper. And it sounds like for you, in nature you can hear the whisper.
Yes.
Because
Clearly.
maybe you're not on the phone
Yes.
and you're not distracted and you're not in anybody else's presence, nobody else has your ear. And so what I'm hearing is wherever you can get still
Yes.
to hear the whisper, whether the whisper is, dude, this isn't working,
Yes.
or whether the whisper is a feeling of something that doesn't quite feel right, or a feeling like, wow, I really want to do this thing, or I want to explore this thing, because the whisper can be a passion, it can be a pain, it can be a truth,
Yes.
it can be an action, or like a tenderness, and
Yes.
whatever brings you to that place that gets you to hear those whispers.
Yes.
And then I think the next thing is whatever support or resources or structure or container allows you to hold whatever you hear.
Yes.
So whether that's, wow, I really want to write a book, or I really need to break up with this person, I really need to study this thing, or whatever it is, then start reaching into whatever support, whatever guidance, whatever coach,
Yes.
whatever next step holds you in that. Maybe it's a healing, maybe it's a passion, maybe it's a learning, wherever you got to go from there. I think the second step is what will support this.
Yes.
Because it might be if there's a diagnosis and I'm finally dealing with it, that might be, okay, I need support from other people that are dealing with this diagnosis and they're on the other side.
Yeah.
Or I need a coach to figure out how to navigate because I don't know how to navigate this. I
Yes.
really want somebody that knows how to do this. Or I really need positive people around me right now because I've got to make some radical change, and I want my circle of influence to change to support those people that want me to grow or want me to heal or want me to be my best, and I may need to take a step back. So who's going to support that? What's going to support that?
So, yeah, and I like to say that breakthrough,
Yeah.
we don't have a shortage of breakthroughs. I mean, insights, downloads, the whispers, right? Even if we're not immersed in these
Epiphanies,
practices, but the question is, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
All right? So you can have the clarity of the breakthrough, which is unbelievable, but if there's no integration, then you're doing it a disservice.
You and I are big on this, like integration. It's not another peak epiphany. You don't need another peak epiphany. A lot of us have gotten those. Now it's like, how does that translate into the changes that I'm going to make a difference, so that the trajectory of my life, my emotional body, energetic, spiritual body, mental body, starts making a change in the trajectory of alignment.
Because breakthroughs, yeah, they can be intense, but they can also just be incredible. And there's the power of clarity of having that breakthrough. I mean, that feeling, that peak emotional state, it's amazing, right? But too often we live in that state, or we're constantly seeking that state, and there's no integration. And so are you able to marry the breakthrough, right, with the daily integration, to bring that breakthrough to life, to not just have it be something that's out there in the ether, in the space, but it's like, no, this is part of me. This is who I am now.
Right. Anchoring it into manifestation. I know that you probably got a couple good podcasts on that. Speaking
the
of
best ones, the best ones.
Right?
Yes.
Is there any numbers in particular that, like he's got like over 150 podcasts right now, brother.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm trying to think of the numbers.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So they're there.
Yeah.
They're there. For sure. I did one with Aubrey too on the roadmap to manifestation, where you take the breakthroughs that are in the ether and how you move it, how do we speak about it, then how do you act about it, how do you face the emotions that come up on the journey to manifesting it into reality, so that what we know becomes what we embody. And that's right?
That's alignment right there, though.
That is alignment, and that's
alignment.
power.
Yeah.
And this is where we're actually embodying that which we know, and it's not just another epiphany and awareness, because we know a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And whether or not we're actually walking it, and that's what they mean by walking it. Am I embodying that truth, or am I just talking about it?
Exactly.
Fantastic. I am digging this, and I love the tenacity with which you are going after your journey. And I've watched you get knocked down and like get back up like so quickly, and doing the inner work in order to do so, so that when there's a failure or a rejection or a criticism, I've watched you, or a setback, I've watched you turn it around. And so I want to acknowledge, because I see you, and
well, going back to the tribe,
and then you can deliver more authenticity to your audience and to your clients when you can understand the essence of those struggles.
Yeah, and going back to the support that you mentioned, right? Like, you have been such an incredible support for me.
Thank you.
Like a spiritual teacher, spiritual coach, a holder of space, whatever we want to call it. And so we can't go it alone. We just can't go it alone. Do not take the journey alone. You have to find your tribe. You have to have your people. You have to have your counsel. You have to have your advisors. You have to have your coach. Hey, it takes a team to keep me going.
Yeah, right.
And you're part of that team.
Right? Likewise. And you're part of my team. I'm like, help me. I'm so new at this. He's like podcast master pro. And I'm like, I'm just new. Teach me, teacher. This is where we get to be humble and work together, where your strengths help me be stronger. And I hope mine are that for you. Absolutely. And that this is where together we can stand as stronger pillars, and we hold each other up when we're wobbling.
Yes.
This is okay when you got knocked down by a criticism, or this launch didn't go well, or whatever the challenge is that's happened. There's financial challenges, is that we deeply get to be there for each other at a soul level. And like, you're my people, brother.
Right,
you're my people. You're my people. So thank you so much for diving into the inner work, and you are definitely embodying that. And you and I both are so passionate about the truth and supporting our clients. And this is why I do this work. Is Shamangelic is about the shamanic part, being in that, to face the fears and radical honesty, and the angelic part is how to face that also with grace and compassion and tenderness, because we're not going to bully ourselves. The inner work is not about beating ourselves up for not doing it better, faster, stronger, quicker, but there is a quality of tenderness that is needed in this process, for sure.
Absolutely.
And so thank you so much. I can't imagine what void would have been created had you played small and not done your inner work to allow your voice out and to allow haters to keep you small. There would be a huge gap, Tommy, in a voice that is coming from men a lot for other men that need to be able to embrace the tenderness of the journey and doing the inner work. And you're making that safe, and I'm so excited and proud.
Well, that means the world, because you've been such a big influence in that, and I know that this specific platform, what you're creating here, is really going to impact people on a deep level. So I'm so humbled and honored.
Yes. So Tommy, tell everybody where they can find you.
Absolutely.
And where they can find the 1% rule and unresolution and the leap of your life. I can't wait to get my hands on this. Okay, I'm keeping this. Okay.
So if you love what we talked about, I have a podcast, as Anahata mentioned. She's been in 2 amazing episodes. You can find that at resistaverageacademy.com. Also, for anybody who listened to this, if you enjoyed this conversation, share it on social media. Tag Anahata and I'm going to pick 5 people to send a free book of the 1% rule just for sharing the episode. So we'll put all the details in there on how to do it. You'll screenshot it, and then you'll tag us, and you'll get a free gift.
Yes, that is a great free gift, by the way. This is packed with great content. So thank you a million times for what you're doing, and continue doing your inner work, because you are just a force. And if you're at this age already with 3 children, 3 books, I know what is coming from you. I've seen it, I've felt it, and keep an eye on Tommy, and so grateful. So where you can find me and more Shamangelic Healing, first of all, please, if this touched you in some way, like it, share it, give us some great reviews. And if you didn't like that, I know that you'll probably write a comment too, and we'll embrace that, won't we, Tommy?
We will. Okay. We'll be doing the work together on that.
All right,
call me, let me know about the comment.
Bring us your truth. That's cool. But please, we want to get the word out. If this was valuable, please share it. Please like it. Let other people know if it touched you. And shamangelichealing.com is where you find me. and my healing practice here in Sedona for retreats, private sessions, and online content. And so a free gift for the audience is going to be $100 off my Quantum Leap program, which is online. Because of integration, Tommy, this is one of the reasons why I created a 12-month program.
Amazing.
That isn't just like a peak experience or retreat experience, which I love, which are very powerful, but also how to walk people through a year-long process of breaking it down. So I'm going to give people $100 off, because if you can't get here in Sedona, we got great stuff in Sedona, you're in Phoenix, and online programs really help. I know you have some online coaching programs as well.
Yes.
So the Quantum Leap program is really designed to help people with integration, clarity, high performance strategies, and accountability to actually help you implement what it is that's going to take you to the next level, and the courage and support and the steps and the tools to really help you create and manifest that life. So I'm going to give you $100 off that program. So click the link on the landing page. So grateful. This has been honest.
Man of the world.
Don't you love him? I mean, seriously, keep an eye on Tommy, and please get on his podcast. Great stuff. I listen to it in the morning, and I'm like in the shower, and Tommy's talking, like I have it on the shelf next to him, like, oh, right, Tommy. So get the book, listen to the podcast, and continue listening here. And we're so grateful and respect your time today. So go forth, do the inner work. It's worth it. Because we're going through it too, and
Every
we
single day.
it doesn't stop.
Nope.
It just keeps getting better, though.
Yes.
The inner work gets easier.
It gets easier.
So if you're still listening and watching, that's because you needed to hear it. It's worth it, and it gets easier, and it gets better, and we're here to remind you to stay with it. So thank you so much. Have an incredible day.